We are always unfolding. We are never fully sealed, but we can use time, and we can use sacred time to be able to put intention in certain areas. If we have a fixed end to a process, it can give us a little bit more desire for our attention to be where we want it to be. In the same way that, since we know when we meditate this morning that within 20-25 minutes the meditation will come to an end, we know that we can bring our full attention 100% to the present moment, because there will be a completion, there will be an end to it. It would be a different thing to say, go ahead and close your eyes to meditate, and I'm not going to tell you when it's going to end. And it may end tomorrow, it may end the next day, it may end whatever. What would that do to our own sense of attention? So this idea of being sealed, of having a completion in the process, is something that allows us to focus. And the question is, what are we focusing on? Well, the focus of these 10 days is exactly what our focus in meditation is. And our focus is on Teshuvah. Teshuvah means return. We know it gets translated as repentance, but it really means return, from the word shuv, return. And the question is, returning to what? Returning to our essence, returning to the truth, returning to reality, not reality as our minds want to spin it out and create it, but the deep, deep reality of the presence and aliveness of God in every moment. Not a concept, not an idea, but a real immediate experience of aliveness and presence. And that really is what this whole period of time is about. And that's what our meditation practice is about. We are returning again and again and again, returning to the breath, returning to awareness of the body, returning to this present moment. And the reason why it's called Teshuvah, it's called return, is because there's awareness that it's natural that we're going to go away. You wouldn't have to return if you didn't go away, but we do go away. We go away in all kinds of ways in our own life. We go away in the meditation to wherever we go, wherever our minds are, whatever the things that are occupying our attention. And again and again and again, we make the choice to return, to return. And just to focus in on this a little bit, the choice to return is predicated, number one, on the awareness that we are away, right? You can't return if you're not aware that you're away. And so much of the time, of course, as we know in our meditation and in our life, we go away from whatever the focus is, the present moment, the breath, the body. And it may be, God knows how long, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, whatever it is, before we realize, wow, I'm in some kind of other fantasy, thought, reality, whatever's going on. I'm definitely not here. And that moment we wake up, and then as soon as we're awake, I'm not here. I make the choice to return. I make the choice to return. Now, here is a really, for some of us, maybe a really radical idea, but I really want us to really consider it, and in our own meditation practice, look into our own experience for the truth of it. That when we go away, we choose to go away. I know it doesn't seem that way. I know it seems like all of a sudden it's just like the winds of our minds, or as the Buddhists call it, monkey mind. It's out of our control. It just kind of goes away in the wind. I want to suggest that we are choosing to go away in those moments. We're not conscious of the choice, but there is in our own being, wherever it is that our mind goes, there is a desire in our own being to go there. Maybe we're thinking about an interaction that we had with somebody, and our mind goes there to try to process it. Maybe it goes to our to-do list for the rest of the day, because if we look at the truth of it, maybe we are having a little bit of anxiety about, are we going to get it all done? I don't want to forget everything. And so my mind goes to run over the to-do list that's happening. Our minds can go to all kinds of things, but on some level, we're choosing to go there. And when we choose to go there after we've made a decision in meditation to be here and to be present, what's really happening is in our own being, whatever it is that whatever direction that our mind is going, we believe on some level that that area is more deserving and more important than where we are right now and right here. That in our own being, somehow, whether it's that processing the conversation with somebody, whether it's running over the to-do list, on some unconscious level, that is dominating our attention, because we believe in a given moment, that is where we need to be, even though we've made the choice to meditate, to be here. And I want to suggest, and I'm going to use a strong word for this, and I don't want the strong word to come out in any kind of judgmental way. It's just human. But for me, it's the power of the imagery that I'm about to evoke is really important to realizing what's at stake here, which is that when we make a decision to say, I want to put my attention here in this moment on God, on presence, on truth, on what's around me here. And yet, as I enter that process, some part of me believes that some other thing is more important than what's here and now. I'm engaging in idolatry. Idolatry. Not idolatry like making a little statue of a little god, but idolatry in defining that as the experience or belief that something else other than the living, awake presence of this moment is more true and more real. That's idolatry. I'll say that again. The belief that anything other than this living, alive presence that is right here is more true, is more real, or even has just as much even reality as what is right here in this moment. That is idolatry. It's a fundamental misperception of what's real. It doesn't mean that there aren't all kinds of other places that our mind goes that are worthy places to put our attention. I'm sure most of them are. Most of them are, and that's part of our processing and our life. And at some point, we do need to give attention to those things. But when we choose to give our attention to those pieces, because unconsciously in a given moment, it seems more real and more important than this present moment when we've decided to be here, that's idolatry. And so then the process of Teshuvah, of bringing our attention again and again back to our breath, back to the body, back to the moment, back to perceiving the energy and the liveness of what's right here. That act of Teshuvah, of return, is returning to the truth. It's returning to what's real. And every time we make that choice, we strengthen that truth in us, that sense of truth in us. And you know, a lot of the times we think, oh, you know, if my mind goes away 100 times in a meditation, that's not so great. Get rid of that evaluation, because your mind will go 100 times, because we do engage in idolatry it's just human, it's just who we are. But every time we make the choice to return, that's where the pedal hits the metal. That is the spiritual practice, the choice to return. So our mind goes away 100 times. If we choose to return 100 times, that's like doing 100 reps of, you know, lifting weights. Every time I return, that's a rep. That's strengthening the reality of what's true in our own being, the reality of the truth of this moment, the truth of this moment. So that's what we get to practice today. And I want us to really kind of not only engage the practice of choosing, you know, each time to come back, but notice our commitment to come back. It's almost like that. We've talked about that witness, that ever-present witness, the one who is watching it all. Let that one who's watching it all be aware of you going away, and be aware of you choosing to come back. Aware of going away, choosing to come back. That ladder, running and returning, running and returning. And know that that choice to come back every time is choosing God, is choosing life, is choosing truth, and strengthening that in our own being. Okay, so find a place, comfortable place to sit, that you can sit for a period without moving. And we'll start with a nigun. Yana nai 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 nai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada nai 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 nai. Yada nai 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 yai nai nai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yana nai 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 nai. Yana nai 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 yai nai nai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yana nai 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 yai dai dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yada nai 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 yai dai dai. Yada nai 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 yai dai dai. Yada nai 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 yai dai dai. Yada nai 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 yai dai dai. Yana nai 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 yai dai dai. Just let your awareness settle in, noticing the pressure of your bottom on the chair or the cushion, the place where your feet meet the floor, noticing every square inch of the bottom of your feet as it touches the floor. Notice the distance between the bottom of your spine and the top of your head. The way the arms hang out of the shoulders and the resting place of the hands. Become aware of the movement of breath, noticing the beginning of the inhale as it passes through your upper lip, over your upper lip and into your nostrils or through your mouth. Noticing the way the body expands to make room for the inhale. And notice that place where the inhale switches to an exhale, following the contraction of breath out. Let your awareness be open and expansive, being aware of your entire body in space, the outline and the shape, the contact points on the surfaces, and the movement of breath in and out, all at once. With every exhale, let your body relax. Letting that movement of breathing be effortless, just being driven by its own movement. And feel the strength of your choice to be with it all, to be here, to notice the air as it touches your face or your arms, to notice the movement of breath in and out, to be aware of the sounds that fill the room and beyond it. To be open to the vibrancy of this moment. That every cell in the body with the breath is filled with aliveness, with intelligence, with consciousness, with purpose. Every cell in the body knows what it needs to do. And every molecule of air, of oxygen that surrounds is perfectly designed for this moment, for this planet, for this sustaining of human and all kinds of life. And as you're aware of everything in your field of perception, allow yourself to sense the presence, the holy presence that infuses everything: breath, body, sound, air. That this presence infuses everything and is beyond everything. when we give our attention to the one reality that is infusing every part of our experience and beyond. The multiplicity, the varied forms of our experience begin to take a background, a back seat. And all there is the one. Ein od milvado, no place empty of the one. Notice your choice to be here with the one presence in this moment, in all of its forms. Notice where the mind brings the attention somewhere else without fighting it. Just observe that movement to a sensation in the body or a particular image or thought or a series of interactions. Notice when your mind moves somewhere else. And as soon as you are awake, whether you're awake from the beginning or you wake up in the middle of wherever your attention has gone, own that choice. Know that you chose to go there on some level. And as soon as you acknowledge that choice, acknowledge where you are, choose to come back. Choose Teshuvah. Choose return. Back to the body, back to the breath, back to the one presence that fills everything. And notice the truth within you that motivates your choice to return. That there is a knowing in you of what's real. The reality of this moment here. The reality of the depth in this moment here. And every breath, let every breath be a choice to be here. Hold yourself close with your attention, close to this truth, this moment. And when you choose somewhere else, as soon as you wake up to that, own that choice and return. I'm going to be quiet now and allow us to breathe together, to be together, to return together over and over again. Welcome back, everybody. Or maybe we never left. Anything that anybody would like to share, or any questions, comments, anything about this process of Teshuvah, of choosing when we go away, this idea of idolatry in kind of the everyday movement of our mind? Do you buy it?
Yes. I do.
I'd like to say, Rabbi, that the idea of idolatry, I always think of a thing, but it makes a lot of sense. It's something that's not tangible that you were talking about. Just my thoughts, making them more important than what's going on now. But the reminder, this is what's really important for me at least, is that to not judge it, because all humans do it. Yeah. But that is something really food for thought to think about. Just going off can be idolatry. Yeah.
I'm really glad you held, and this is, again, we talked about last week that this High Holy Day time is really about this balance between judgment and compassion, right? Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hadin, is the day of judgment, and Yom Kippur is Yom HaRachamim, the day of compassion. And the idea is that we bring them both together like wings of a bird. And this idea of idolatry, this is that sense where we judge it, and I don't mean judge it in a negative way. It's just we notice and we see it for what it is, which is that there's a belief in us that this is more important than the present moment. And that's a false belief. It doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us whatever. It just is. And then the compassion part comes to say, yeah, and that's just part of the dance of being human. And that's the part of the dance of consciousness. And that's part of, and really where my attention is and where I want to come back to again is this act of return. It was the Rambam, Maimonides, was the first one who took this idea of idolatry and brought it into the mental sphere, as opposed to, worshiping other gods in a concrete ways that we see in the Bible. He really went as far as to say, is whenever you have a concept or even an idea about God, that's idolatrous. Because you can't have an idea. Whenever you have an idea about God or a concept about God, all that is your own mind's concept or idea. You take the infinite and you wrap it up in a nice little package in your mind, whether that's this abstract ephemeral thing, or whether that's this thing, even as I'm talking right now, this presence that's in everything and beyond everything. I can have all kinds of sophisticated concepts about God, the immanence, the transcendence, all of this. And of course, whenever I use words, I move into that conceptual sphere. And even that act of words and talking about it is idolatrous. As long as I believe that the words that I'm using, the concepts that I'm talking about, are not just guideposts that are pointing me to a living reality. If I believe that the map is the territory, if I believe that the concepts and ideas is what God is, according to Maimonides, I'm in a relationship with idolatry of my own mind. And so, in looking at this, what feels true to me from this interpretation from Maimonides is I have all kinds of beliefs that I carry with me on moment to moment about what's important when it's not, right? I can get right into in a given moment that having the dishes done or having the organization I want or whatever it is. I mean, think about all those little things that, that they came up with that statement to say, don't sweat the small stuff about. Well, the idea that I take small stuff and make it big stuff, that's idolatry. That's idolatry. In that moment, I believe that that's what's deserving and important of my attention, as opposed to the living reality, as opposed to the relationships, as opposed to the other people that are in front of me. So, other thoughts?
Rabbi?
Yes, Maury.
Maury. Well, I'm not muted.
Nope.
Choice is such a powerful concept. And as a psychologist, we teach people that they can control their thoughts. And this is a very big thing. Mostly we're focusing on thoughts about how they feel about themselves, thoughts about themselves and their relationships, but the whole idea of being able to be in charge of your thoughts, be able to control them. And of course, that didn't stop me from wondering today, from deciding to wonder. But, I came back.
Yes.
It's very helpful. It's a really important concept.
Yeah, and it's great. I'm glad you also used the word control, because that can be a confusing term. What I really hear you saying is that by being able to be aware that you choose your thoughts, that you have that choose, that's empowering. That's very empowering. When you realize that you have the power of choice at every moment, then you've suddenly given yourself a ship to navigate your life. Now the sense about control is the only piece that I hesitate with control is there can be a sense of arrogance that can come with a sense of control. And I mean by that, which is to say that I'm a work in progress, right? I'm a work in progress. And as much as I desire to choose life, as the Torah says, so I may live, to choose this present moment, I am going to over and over again choose things that aren't about this present moment. I'm going to, because I'm a work in progress. And I'm continuing, you could say that my healing journey, all of our own healing, growing, transformative journey, is the journey of clarifying on deeper and deeper levels what is true and what is important. And that's a process. So my only hesitation with the word control is the sense that almost like to say control, if I believe that I can control it, it's almost to say that I believe that I have it mastered. That I know fully through and through what's important, and I'm gonna choose that every time. And it's not that theoretically I don't actually have the ability. I do have theoretically the ability to choose at every moment the truth, but the reality is that I'm a work in progress. And so I'm not going to be able to control where my mind goes. I can choose where my mind goes, and I do choose where my mind goes every time. So
Yes, I think I think that the concept is choice.
yes.
I mean, I know that I said control, but the concept is choice.
Yes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know, I went off on what you said, not because I heard loud and clear that you weren't really talking about control. I just used that as an opportunity
Yeah.
to clarify that piece, because it's real easy, again, I think as Audrey said too, is if I am in touch with the truth that I can choose where my mind goes every moment, which I do and I can, then it's really easy to say, well, when I'm not choosing being here, I'm choosing somewhere else. I don't want to beat myself up about that. I don't want to feel like I have an inability to choose because I have this idea of control. So I'm just, again, bringing back to that place of choice. Thank you for bringing that, Maureen. Other thoughts? In the meditation, were you able to actually notice yourself choosing to be somewhere other than you are? Meaning that not from the place of suddenly waking up and being like, oh, I'm here, how did I get here? But actually like noticing yourself from the beginning, deviating from paying attention to the present moment and going to some other experience.
I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did find it was easier to accept that going away moment.
To accept that going away moment?
Yes, to accept it without judgment.
Yeah.
But I would think back to James Michener's book, The Source,
Yeah.
and the little idols that were in the stories. And I think it was easier to have little idols, to believe in idols as gods, to have control over your life and your living. And it must have been really hard for those Jewish philosophers to teach people about Judaism and accept one God that they couldn't see and touch.
Yes.
And know.
That's so right, Kathy. And I think about, this is really the story of Abraham and the midrashim around Abraham. Like, if you haven't heard it, great story. Abraham's father sold idols. He had an idol shop, and all the little tchotchkes everywhere, people would come in. And Abraham, as the midrash says, from a very small age, even as a kid, realized that there was something really off about all this, that this idea about believing in all these little powers and these things that are controlling everything was not right. There was this sense of a unity that he couldn't verbalize, but he just knew. And he goes ahead one day, and his father comes back, and his father Terah finds his whole idol shop. All the idols are smashed on the floor, everything else. And one of the idols is holding a stick, like this. And he looks at his son Abraham, and he said, what did you do? He said, how could you break? This is our whole livelihood. How can you break all of this? And Abraham said to him, but Father, how can you believe that all these idols have, these powers? They don't. I didn't break it. It was this guy over here, the idol with the stick. He's the one that broke it. And the father said, that's ridiculous. How can you tell me that this idol has the power to break everything else? And Abraham looks at it and he says, well, if you don't believe that this idol can break everything else, why do you pray to him?
Aha.
Right. And and that became kind of the midrash of the story that was, as actually Maimonides, as the Rambam teaches it, is that was what prepared and allowed Abraham to be the one that God chose to deepen and have that relationship with. When God said, Lech lecha, to Abraham, go forth beyond all the things that you know to a land that I'll show you, and you will be a blessing, and all of this. One of the questions is, well, why Abraham? Why did God pick Abraham? And Maimonides references this midrash, this story. It's because Abraham was already open. He wasn't believing in all of the idolatry that was surrounding him. He wasn't distracted by all of these different beliefs and these powers. He realized that none of this was true. And so he was the vessel, he was the one that could actually hear and be able to be open and receive God's presence and direction. All right, everybody. Great to be with you all on this.
Wonderful.
Let me just stop our stream here on this